Hello. The Divine Code reading for October 29th, pages 287 and 288. We are in the chapter Annulment of Vows and Promises, and vows made according to the public's understanding. Topic number 6. We do not annul an oath because of something that had not occurred at the time the oath was made, and the person has no possible knowledge of it from the onset. After the oath was made, something new arose that the person could not have known or anticipated at the time of the oath. So what is implied? For example, if someone took an oath not to derive benefit from such and such a person, and the person later became the city's mayor, since the person did not regret making the vow, even if he now says, if I had known this would occur, I would not have made the vow. His vow should not be annulled, for he does not regret his original making of the vow. However, if he regretted the vow and said, if I had known that this person was fitting for prominence and honor at the time of my vow, I would not have taken it, then this is a true and valid regret, and its vow can be annulled. So the person makes a vow. If there was something in the logic that he could have known, or maybe he should have known at the time, and later on he comes to realize this, he can realize the logic was flawed in how he made the vow. Then he can go back and say, okay, I made a mistake, my logic was flawed, and I wish to annul the vow because I didn't realize, the person made a mistake. If something happens later on that's not related, which he would not have known at the time of the vow, therefore he can't say, well, if I had thought it through better, I would have realized this. Now, in the example here given of the mayor, what we're seeing is that it's not so much the occurrence of what happens. It's rather whether the person is able to go back in his thought process and think through in a better way from how he should have thought. Then it could be said, okay, I made a mistake, I should have thought it through better. But if he bases it on, if he claims that his original thought process was valid, that would be the first example. The person that said, well, gee whiz, if I had known the guy was going to be mayor, I wouldn't have made the vow. Then he's not acknowledging a mistake in his thought process originally. Therefore, there's no way to annul the thought process. There's no way to annul his decision based on his early thought process if he doesn't regret the thought process. The second case, he regrets the thought process. Let's say two cases where a person makes a vow not to receive benefit from a lottery ticket. Then a couple hours later, the lottery ticket wins. There's no logical way for him to say otherwise. There's no logic that he missed. It's just a random occurrence, and therefore there's no way that he can go back and regret his vow. Now, if a person says he's going to, he vows not to receive benefit from a stock option. He has the opportunity to buy stock, but he decides not to buy the stock. However, there's a report that's in the process of that's already been written and is in the process of being released that's going to make the stocks increase in value. He could say that had he known had he known the information in the report, he would not have made the vow. Therefore, there's a mistake in his reasoning that he could have known at the time. Therefore, it would be possible to annul the vow in that case. It depends, the difference is to what extent is he able to rethink that he made a mistake at the time when he made the vow, and not just a random thing. When does this apply? In regard to a normal occurrence when the person could have foreseen as being possible at the time he made the vow. But if an unusual occurrence happens that one would not normally think of, this is completely unforeseen condition, and the court should not consider this to be an opening to allow the person to be granted annulment due to regret, since he does not regret that he originally made the vow. To regret that a person originally made the vow means he's able to go back and rethink and say, okay, if I had thought it through better, I would have made a different decision. That's where the person has to get to in order to be able to annul the vow. For example, if one swears not to derive benefit from such and such a person who is a healthy person, and the person dies unexpectedly and leaves an inheritance to the person who vowed, the court does not release him from the vow based on the statement, if I had known that he would die, I would not have made it this oath. Since the death of a healthy person is unusual, the person would not have thought about this possibility at the time of his vow. Now, if it's his rich uncle that he vows he's never going to receive any benefit from the person, but at the time he doesn't realize that his rich uncle has him in his will, that might be something. They can say, gee, if I had thought it through and realized that I'm in his will, that might be something. But if he already knows that information and he still makes a statement thinking the guy's going to live a long time and he's never going to see any inheritance anyway, and therefore he makes the vow, it would be more difficult to go back to the original thinking in that case. And a person has to go back to the original thinking in order to annul the original thinking. Vows made according to public understanding. Topic number 7. One who swears or promises upon the knowledge of one or more other people may not request annulment without their consent, since the vow was made on their knowledge and intention. See the end of topic 315. So we're talking about a person that's made a vow. Let's say he vows he's going to marry someone. Well, that is dependent upon the other person accepting the vow. Therefore, he cannot annul the vow later unless he involves the other person, because the vow itself involves the other person. Therefore, a court does not release such a vow unless the person has previously received permission from the others for release of his vow. If the court nevertheless went ahead and released the person from the vow, or if the other people die, in which case it is impossible to request a permission to annul the vow, or if there is a overriding need that he must annul his vow, the court has permission to do so. See Tractate Nevarim 65a and Tosafot and Ron there, and Shulchan Aruch Yordea 228:20. So it's possible in a depending on the circumstances, to release the person from his vow. If there's an overriding logical reason for the court to do that. Topic number 8. A vow of a person who swears based upon the consent of the public at large can never be nullified, or can never be annulled. This is why Avimelech brought a group of his friends when they wished to convince Isaac to make the oath of mutual peace, even though Isaac respected the same oath that had been given by Abraham. Orachaim Genesis 26:26. So if it's made with other people involved, a group of people are all part of the, they're all part of this thing. You have a town hall meeting, and they decide to do something. It would require another town hall meeting with the same people to be able to annul such a vow. Since it is impossible to receive consent from the public. But if there was an overriding need for a person to rescind his vow, the court may do so, even in such a case. Rambam Laws of Oaths 6, 8, and 9, Shulchan Aruch Yeridea 228, 21. So even in this case, if the person, well, if it's possible to bring back together the same group of people, but this is where maybe it's broadcast over the television. It's put in the newspapers, and the news travels to the next city, and it just keeps traveling. It'd be impossible to bring that group of people back together. You know, someone promises to build a road, and it's going to affect everybody in the neighborhood communities, and everybody's changing their business and changing their activities to accommodate this new road. It would cause a great disruption on the broader community, and it would be impossible to bring all this stuff back together again. So the person would be bound by that oath because there's too many factors involved, unless there's a great need, similar to what was stated earlier. If it was discovered that the road could cause damage to people, or if it's discovered that the person doesn't have the finances for the road, or some overriding reason to annul the vow. One who takes an oath in public is not considered to have based his oath on their consent until he clearly states that he has made the oath based on the consent of the public. Shulchan Aruch Yeridea 228:23. So if he makes the statement, if you guys approve of me making this road, we'll make the road. Then he's bound by that oath. But if he just simply gets up and says, I plan to build a road, then it's not at that point dependent on the other people. It's only if he says that he's doing it with the consent of the other people involved. Thank you.